This is Møller Nielsen from Java Code Geeks, and I'm going to teach you how to write clean, efficient Python code by going through some Python interview questions. If you're looking into getting a job where you have to use Python, then this video will be something for you. Now, additional to this video, there will be related articles and links in the description below. Also, please take the time to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we have some more stuff coming up. Also, feel free to visit javacodegeeks.com where we have more videos and content like this. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. So when you're going to a job interview, then your future boss, he or she is trying to find out how much do you know about Python, but they're also trying to find out what kind of person are you. Are you easy to work with? Because a lot of times it's actually easier to find someone that is easy to collaborate with and it is okay that you don't know everything about Python. But of course, you need to know the basics, so they don't need to start from ground up with you. And in this video, I will talk about which things that would be expected of you to know about if you want a job where you have to use Python. You could come from the Java world, that's fine. You could also come from a JavaScript with a JavaScript background. That is all. It all counts as a plus in the book when you sit at the interview. So of course, also mention those things if you have experience with other programming languages. But one of the first things that you'll probably talk about is actually which IDE, integrated development environment, that you prefer using when you are coding Python. And here there are two obvious choices. Which one of them is PyCharm, which comes in a community edition, a free version, and it also comes in a paid version. And the difference between the community edition and the paid version is that the paid version also supports HTML and style sheets. Then the other choice is Visual Studio Code. That is also pretty good for coding Python. So that's also something you can mention, and that is also free, and you can just install a Python plugin right there. In this demonstration right here, I will use the PyCharm. I will use PyCharm for this demonstration right here. Then another question that you would usually be asked is actually what kind of package manager do you use? What kind of dependency system are you used to using? And when I say that you are asked these questions, you can actually be proactive and then ask some of these questions to your future boss. This shows that you actually care and you're interested in the position that you might soon get. But when you are dealing with Python, it is important to have some kind of dependency system to handle all of your packages and dependencies. And if you are not using any of these systems, then your default environment will be cluttered very soon with different versions of all of the packages that you use. So right here there are two obvious choices, and one is the virtual environment, which is part of Python, and then there's Anaconda, which has a bit more features, and it also comes in a free version up to Python 3.9 right now. I'm using Anaconda for this demonstration right here, but both are really good. What is important is that you also mention and that you know about there's something called the requirements.txt file. That is where you will place your dependencies in. I'll show you this in just a minute or two. This is just an overview of what you are expected to know. So we have the virtual environment right here, which can handle packages. The virtual environment is also just as good as the Anaconda. Then we have something called the PEP 8 standard. That is also really important to mention. That shows that you actually know when to use snake case and when to use camel case in your code. Because when you're creating classes, then you want to use camel case, and then and anything else is actually in snake case. So, but there's a lot of rules like that. Sometimes you want to have two lines in between your functions and etc. etc. There's a lot of rules in this PEP 8 right here, and this is a good standard to read up on. It also shows you some respect to your colleagues. Your colleagues will not suddenly find that variable names will be with a capital starting letter. It just looks nicer when you're used to when you code the same way. Then of course you will also have some kind of standardization, and it's also easier when you have to merge code together. So this PEP 8 standard is definitely worth to know about, and I'll show you some examples also in a couple of minutes. Then you might be asked what kind of web framework that you have, if you have worked with any web frameworks for Python, and if you haven't done it already, then I think you should dig into Django and also Flask. These two web frameworks are very popular for Python, and Django is a little bit heavier. It does a bit more features right here. So if you then with Flask, if you want to create something lightweight, fast, then you could use Flask, and it's also easier to get into, of course, because they're a little less. It is a smaller framework, but Django it has more features if you want to create something for production use. So you definitely mention these two frameworks if you're asked about web frameworks for Python. Now let us try to look at some code. I'll just go here to my PyCharm editor right here. Of course, you need to know how to set up an Anaconda environment. I'm using Windows and WSL. We have other videos about that at Java Code Geeks. If you want to dig into those, we have some Python. Tutorials for beginners that you should also look into if you haven't. If your skills are not that good within Python yet. But let us see what is actually expected. We have something named lists and dictionaries. You would be expected to know about lists and dictionaries, and you could also get some. Sometimes you will actually get a kind of an exam that you need to pass, where you have to answer these questions right here. So you need to know at least how to create a list, which is like this. You have your variable name on the left side, and as you can see right here, this is PEP 8 compliant because I'm using snake case. I have written my and then underscore and then list right here. I'm not using camel case. Camel case would be wrong here accordingly to the PEP 8 convention. And then I'm using the squared brackets right here. This is how we create a list, and then actually I can just name my objects or my variables within this list right here. And what you should also know that all lists actually have a very, very nice string function on them. That means that you can actually print out lists very easily and get a good representation of that out in the console log. If you're used to Java, then this is definitely not the case, and you would not get something that looks nice. Then you have to create your own toString method in Java, and when you're dealing with Python, it's called a function. Dictionary you also need to know about. You would also be expected to know about how to handle dictionaries. Here we are using curly brackets right here, and as you can see right here, we have a key, which is always a string, and you can use a single quote or you can use a double quote. That doesn't matter, as long as you use both, as you use the same kind for each string that you want to create. So the keys are always the strings, and then on the right side, the values. Those can be of any type that you want to use. So in this situation right here, it's a string, and then we have an integer right here in the end. And then again, you should know that there's a good toString representation of a dictionary, so you can actually just print it out, and then you will get a nice looking string right there. And then you should also, of course, you should know how to fetch the value for a key in a string, and there are multiple ways to do that, but one of the ways is actually to mention the dictionary, and then use the square brackets, and then the key, and then you'll get the value returned. You're also expected to know how to use the for loop, because for loops are those are a lot. That's a huge part of programming Python, actually programming in general. But regarding Python, you always want to loop through something. So that is the Pythonic thought. So that means that you would very rarely use an index like for, like you see it in Java, where you say for, and then you have an int I equals 0, and then up to 10 or something like that. With the Pythonic thought, then you would actually go through a list of something. That also means that if you want to do something 10 times, then you would actually create something called a range. You would use the range instead. That means in this situation right here, I want to go through each item in my list. Then I just write for item in my list, and then I can actually print out each item like this. So it's very, very easy, and many times it takes less code, less lines to do what would take more lines in Java, for instance, or .NET. Then we have a iteration through the dictionary, and here you can actually say that you can actually take two parts of the dictionary right here. You have the key and you have the value. You can take that on the left side, and then you can say that you want to take that from the My Dictionary items on the right side. So this means that I'm actually both getting the key and the value out right away, and then I can actually handle these in this iteration right here. Of course, if you only need the value, then of course you would just get the values instead, and then you just write values here instead. But what I see sometimes is that people, they actually go through the keys and then they look up the value as the first line here. Then they actually look up the value, and that is it is not the most efficient way to do it, and it looks wrong. So it seems wrong because you can actually extract both the key and the value from the items like this. So I would say this is the right way to iterate it through a dictionary if you need both the key and the value. Now let us try to run this program right here. I'll just right click and then I'll say run list and dictionaries like this. And here we can see, let us just go in the top right here. First we print my list, which is right here. That means this is the to-string representation of the list, which is right here. It's quite good. It gives us square brackets, so we know that this is a list. And the same here we have the dictionary. It gives us curly brackets, so we know this is a dictionary. Okay. Thank you very much for that, and it gives us both the keys and the values of what is going on. So it's very easy to debug our Python program. Then we are printing out. We're printing out one value right here, where we print out my favorite color. That is the blue that we see right here. And then again, we go through each of the items once again. Here we have my shopping list: tomatoes, butter, and bread, etc. And then we have the key value set right here. Another thing that you're expected to know is that you can format strings like this. You can use these curly brackets, and then you can format your string, and then you can also use this for string concatenation. It just looks cool that you have the template right here on the left side, and then you have your your parts. The things you want to replace, you have those on inside the format function part right here. So that's actually it about that. As you have probably seen right now, you can see I have a yellow bar in the top where it says package requirement pandas is not satisfied. And this is because I have created a requirements.txt file, and this is very normal to create. This is I would say this is actually best practice, that you have all of your dependencies mentioned in requirements.txt file, and then you actually just mention them right here. If you need a pandas library, pandas is it's a very used library. So if you have not looked into this pandas, if you have not tried those those arrays and all of the data handling right there, then you should definitely do so. And we also have a video about that at javacodegeeks.com that you can watch. And you just use a new line, and then you can mention all of your dependencies right here. And as you can see right here, the PyCharm integrated development environment, it actually senses that you have this requirements file right here, but this pandas has not been installed to the corresponding Anaconda environment that I have active right now. This means that it actually asks me, do you want me to install the pandas dependency right here? And there's actually also a small warning right here. So pandas is not installed, and if I want to install it, I could just right click, and then I could say, and then I could just install it in. If I go to my Python interpreter page in settings inside my PyCharm IDE, but I'll not do that right now. We will focus on the basic stuff right here. So then we have another thing. We have dynamic types. You need to know that the variables this is a dynamically typed language. This means that you can actually change the type as you go. That means you can start with having a string like I have right here, and then you can actually change this into an integer. just a couple of lines further down. And then and then I can use my integer right here. And here's what I talked about earlier, where we talked about that the Pythonic way to use for loops is actually that you want to go through something. That means that if you want to do something like 4 times, then you need to create a range, and then you can say the start number is 0. And if the start number is 0, you actually don't have to mention the 0. You can just delete that. So right here, I'm going through. I'm running this code right here. Print hello, format, and then n. I'm printing that 4 times, and then I have my index, if you will, printed out right there. Let us see if this code actually works. I can just right click, press and press run. I can also press Control Shift F10 because I'm using PyCharm. And here we can see hello 0 1 2 3 in the console output. Another thing you need to know about is the literals. Of course, you are expected that there are some words that there are some reserved words. There's some reserved words that you cannot use for variables. You need to know about those. You don't need to remember all of those. You don't need to remember those, but you need to know that they are actually there. So you cannot create a variable named true, for instance. It is also wrong accordingly to the PEP 8 convention, the PEP 8 standard. So let us see if I can create a true in lowercase. Yes, I can do that, and that is another thing you need to know. Python is case sensitive, so that's also something you need to know. I cannot use if because that is a reserved word. I cannot use elif because that's also a reserved word, and there's a lot of these. You can also not use catch. And try because those are also used. But that's a lot. And as I said before, you do not need to remember those. You just need to know that there are some, and most of the time your integrated development environment will help you to say that this is not good, or else you will get an error when you run your program. And you can actually run all .py files with Python and then the name of the file. If variable. So now I have actually changed it right here. Let us fix this program so it actually works. So now we have actually fixed it, and we get a warning right here. No new line at end of file. That's another rule from the PEP 8 standard. So I need to press enter right here to get a new line in the end of the file. And let us go to error handling. You also need to know about error handling. It is used a lot, especially in the libraries. If you're using any libraries, then at some point then you will actually get into an error, and then you need to handle that. And you can, if you don't want your program to stop when this error, this exception is being reached, then you can do a try and then an except. That's the same as if you're from the Java world, then this would be corresponding to try and catch. And here I can see what type of exception that I want to catch. And there are some built-in exceptions like this value error. And then just for fun, then I have created my own custom exception right here. Too old. This is just a class that extends the exception. It just needs to extend something called the base exception. But this exception also inherits from the base exception. Inheritance is something else you also need to know about, and I will show you that as the last thing because that is actually the most complex things about Python, and actually generally in programming, that is the whole inheritance stuff. That is always that is always a place where people will make errors. And as you can see right here, this is actually a camel case, and that is correct accordingly to the PEP 8 standard. Classes need to be written in camel case like this. This pass here means that there's no code. I just created this dummy class because I wanted to use it and raise it as an error right there. Let us try right here. So we have try, and then I'm running some code right here. I'm actually getting input. So I ask, what is your age? Input your age, and then I'm converting it into an integer. And then you have seen something else maybe on the left side, that is I'm actually saying that this variable is an integer, because even though you don't have to say which type these variables are because it is a dynamically typed language, then it is actually, I would say it's still best practice. I like to mention which variable type it actually is, unless you are setting it on the same line. If you're setting it, let's say that I would set this to 10 right away, then everybody can see that this is an integer, so then I don't need to say that this type is an integer. But especially in the beginning, and I would actually say always, if you are in doubt whether you should actually mention the type or not, then please mention the type. It will also make your colleagues very happy, so they can see which types are being used. Then we have an if sentence right here. If age is less than 20, then we raise the value error. If age is greater than 200, then raise the custom error, the too old error right here. And then if there's no errors, then we will print out your age is, whatever age we placed in right here. And value error, then we say you are too young to use this program, and too old exception, then we will actually just say you're too old to use this program. And it is not an error. It's important to understand the difference between errors and exceptions. Exceptions are things that could actually happen in your program, and you have written some cool code that can actually handle those situations. While an error is something that makes your program stop usually. So. Now let us try to run this program right here. I'm going to right click again. I'm going to press run. Input your age, and to begin with we don't want any error, so I'll just write 30. Your age is 30. That means that we reach this code right here, and then nothing else happened. I'll press Ctrl Shift F10 now. That means I'll run it again. Input your age. This time we will just write 2. You are too young to use this program. Okay. I'll press Ctrl Shift F10 once again. Ctrl Shift F10 once again. Then I'll press 300, enter. You are too old to use this program. If you're using PyCharm, let me just give you a small tip. If you press the escape button, then you will always end up in the in your editor window right here, and then you can press the Ctrl Shift F10 right here again, and then you can run your program. So, So let us just type something in so the program ends. So that was the error handling. You are expected to know about that. Then we have the pip 8 standard. Yes, we have the new developer created this code right here, and now we have to fix it so it actually it is compliant to pip 8. So first of all, the class is not in camel case, so we need to rename that. We can refactor that with Shift F6, like I'm doing right now. And I'll say that this is space and ship, and then refactor. And then it was actually changed in this file, and I'm very happy about that. Then we have a member variable right here. This should not be crew on board. This should be, and again I can press Shift F6 just to rename it. This should be crew underscore on underscore board, because this is a member, because this is a variable. And there are no types on this, so I would like actually to say that this is an int, and the value is 10. Then we have turbo. Turbo, it is with capital T. That's not good. We need to have lowercase. And again, this time I could actually say that this is a bool like this. I like to give the type, especially on member variables. Then it's easy for other developers to see what you actually thought. Then we have a function right here which is fly away. And as you can see right here, we always pass a self. That means that then it can actually reach the member variables that we have up here, and you can also call the functions on that on that object that we're using right now, right here. Right here, there is something. Yes, so this is and here we just print bus. Again, here we have some variables. I'll just rename those spaceship 1 like this. This time I will do it without using the refactor. The function right here should be renamed, so we will just do that. Fly underscore away. All the functions should also be like this, and then we get this list right here. Do we really want this code to be changed? And then I write yes. Please do the refactor. And it may be static. Yes, that is okay. So, And we could also mention the return type to none if you want to. So that is, if you come from Java world, then none and void, that is the same. And when you do it, when you write the arrow like this after the function, then you actually say that this is the return type. And it's always good to give a return type on your functions. Then people, your colleagues will, they will really like you for that. And here I create a new instance of spaceship, and then I call fly array right here. So let me just run this right here, bus, and that's actually it regarding the pip 8 standard. We just fixed all of those errors right there. Now we need to know a bit of inheritance. First of all, we need to know that there's something called packages, just like with Java. We will the way the packages works is that we will just create a folder, and then you can create an __init__.py file. And what this does is actually it gives us a file where we can place some code that is run only once whenever one of these files right here are loaded and called in our main program. Then the code inside init.py will actually be executed. So it will only be run maximum once, and maybe it will never be run. You don't know that. It depends on the developers whether they use this these modules that you have inside your package right here. Another thing, you can also not import these files and these modules right here unless you have this init file right here. And a lot of times we will see then it's just empty. Then it's just empty like this. But for the fun of it, then I've created this print line right here. And now we have the question about inheritance. So we can create a class, and then we can actually inherit from that class. So I've created this cargo class right here. It has a price, it has an insurance member variable, and then this is the constructor. If you come from Java world, then this is a constructor, and you always mention self first. That means that then you can actually have reference for the object that is being called, and then you can give extra arguments, extra parameters to this constructor right here, and I can set those member variables to the arguments. Then we have a string representation right here. So the string representation right here, it creates this nice, if I want to print out the object, then I will actually get a nice string representation right here that says price and insurance, and then it nicely templates and formats the string that we can see in the console output. Then I've created a fruit class. The fruit class extends from cargo. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about inheritance. And as you can see right here, we are actually importing the cargo class right here, and then we are extending from it right there, and then I'm creating a new member variable. This means that this fruit can do and has all the member variables from cargo, but it has an extra argument which is rotten right here. In my constructor, or in my init function right here, then you should actually always call the super constructor. That is a good practice. You need to call the super constructor, where you set some values. Here I'm setting 10 and false. That means it does not have insurance, and the price is 10. And then I set self.rotten is rotten right here. The same, I have created minerals. Again, it extends from cargo, and it has weight, it has name, and then again I'm creating a constructor, which is right here. Here we have the constructor, and then we have here we're calling super, and then we call the constructor of the cargo class. That's what we call right here. And if you are getting some kind of examination, then there will usually be a lot of weight on the object-oriented coding. So there will be a lot with classes and how to create functions, because if you show that you master that, then it shows you that you can actually think abstract, and then you would probably also know about then you know how to solve any problem actually. So just bear that in mind. The object-oriented part is very important, and of course it's also very difficult to begin with. But just keep on struggle until you actually know about inheritance and what an object is and what a class is and how to actually design these as good as possible. Then we have the string representation right here, and in this situation right here, we're actually using the super to string representation, and we are also using the member variables that we have from the minerals. That is quite cool. So another thing, if you have created some code where you are using more than one page, then you should think about whether you actually should create a class and then put your code away in that class instead. Yeah, your code can easily just be one long file where you actually do all of your where you do whatever you want to do, but it is very difficult to read for other people. So use classes, use packages as we do right here, and then you will be happy. And yeah, keep your files short and easy to maintain an overview. So now we have something right here that we also need to know about. This is right here. If name equals to main, then we call this code, or else we do not call this code. This is because when you're dealing with Python, code can be run from a lot of other from any file actually. So this means that if the Python program started inside this file right here, then we call this code. If the Python program actually started from another file, and that file actually took in imported this file right here, then we will not call the code right here. And this shows us that this is the main program. This is not just some part that can be incorporated in any program. This is the this is the starting point of your program. This is what this says right here, and it is a kind of an insurance, if you will, or a safety safety mechanism that you will not run this code unless you are definitely certain that you want to run this code, and also that your colleagues are not running this code by mistake. So here we have minerals. I'm creating new minerals right here. Hundreds, that is a price. Crystals, that is a type, and that was the the weight of. And then we have whether it's insured or not. So I'm creating 2 times minerals. Then I'm creating some bananas, and then I'm printing out my minerals, and I'm printing out my bananas. So let us see how they work right here. Here we have the output first. Here we have the cargo package code is being called. So that is the first line, and then we have the price insurance, and then we have the mineral type crystals right here, and then we have the price right here down here again. And etc, etc, etc. So you can see we only had the cargo package code is being called. We only had that line once, even though that we actually are using classes from the package several times. The code is only called once. The code that we have in this init file right here. So that is important to understand. And then we have this. Then we have this mineral type where we actually had that actually called super, and also So so here we have the diamonds with weight 200 and price 10. Let me just look at the minerals right here. So here we had the string representation right here. Regarding the fruit, we did not have any string representation right there. So let us just create that together. I'm going to copy paste from the minerals. So now let us create this string representation right there. Again, you can see we get these small errors. That is because we are not PEP 8 compliant. If we did not have this line in between our functions, then we would not be PEP 8 compliant. So here we have, what do we want here? We want to say that we have a fruit. Fruit is rotten, and then the value. And then again, here we use the curly brackets right here. And first we actually want to incorporate the super string right here. So that was the super string. That is from the cargo class, and then we have then we call self.isRotten like this. And let us rerun our program from main and see what it actually has. Fruit is rotten, false, that is right here, and then we have the output that we get from the cargo class, which is up here. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because we have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Bye!